Hi class, welcome to lesson 9.4, Understanding Random Sampling Methods. And we are looking at statistics, and we have been looking at different ways to display your data. And now we're going to talk about collecting data. I want you to think about the different populations there are at our middle school. So we've got a population of 6th graders, we've got a population of 7th graders, we've got a population of 8th graders. There's a population of teachers. You can divide them by age. You could divide a group of, we've got a couple of 10 and 11-year-olds and 12, 13, 14, and even some 15-year-olds. So we've got several different populations. So let's say you are asking, you're trying to collect data on what we should do, but you only ask 8th grade. Well, if only 8th grade is surveyed, then your sample can be biased because 8th graders will be looking out for 8th grade interests. If you ask only the teachers have their own interest, and so answer questions based on their interest. And so when you survey people, one common mistake is you ask one population of people. And the problem with that is that population will answer according to that population. You're not going to get a wide spread ideas and interests if you only survey one population. So when we are collecting data, we need to collect data from many populations. So let's say that there's a big, Dr. Snyder is going to make a big change in middle school, and he wants to ask what people think about that. He needs to ask, if he's sending out a survey, a representative from each population. Now, our population is small enough that he could survey the whole middle school and get ideas. But what if the data you're trying to collect is from the city of Norman? You cannot send out surveys to every person in Norman. Well, you could, but it would be 1, expensive, 2, time-consuming, and 3, difficult to find all the people. So when people are collecting data, when statisticians or scientists are collecting data, it is important that they collect data from all the populations. And that is what we're going to talk about today, is how to get your sample. Now, sample is your data, and how to make sure everyone is represented. And there are 3 different sampling methods we're going to talk about. One is simple random. You're very familiar with this one. One is stratified random, and the last is systematic random. So let's say you are going to collect data. A simple random sample is kind of like names in a hat. So you assign, or you could assign each person a number and use a random number generator to pick a sample. So you've done this in elementary classrooms or even middle school classrooms, where a teacher would have your names on a stick, would put the stick, and would randomly draw names to make sure everyone's participating. The method used is simple random. Names in a hat, names on a stick, random number generator. Okay, that is one way to collect a sample. The other is called stratified random sample. And in this case, you do a step first. First, you divide the population into groups, and then you randomly pick a sample from each group. So let's say we are going to survey all of the middle schools in Norman. You would first divide your population into groups. Maybe it would be by grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. Maybe it would be, if you want to cover all the middle schools in Norman, it would be some from each of the middle schools. But you divide your population into groups, however many groups you need to make sure that every group is represented. And then you randomly pick a sample from each group. So you divide them into a group and then randomly pick people from each group. So the first one, you don't divide the population. You just have this big population. You randomly draw their names. The second way is you divide them into groups. So like the middle school example, I have my 6th grade group, my 7th grade group, my 8th grade group. And then I randomly draw people from the 6th grade group, randomly draw people from the 7th grade group, randomly draw people from the 8th grade group. Now the last one is systematic random sample. And in this case, you would list all your population in some order. And then you would pick every nth person. And n is just a number. Maybe you have a list of everyone, and then you pick every 5th person. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, you're in my group, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 is in my group, person number 15, person number 20, something like that. Or it could be the 100th person is chosen, depending upon how many there are. So systematic, the population is put in an order, and then you pick every 5th, every 7th, whatever number you want. And the other two are simple random and stratified random. So this question, our lesson assignment starts on page 66. They're giving you an example of how they're picking their population, how they're picking their sample. And you need to figure out which method are they using. The 3 methods. Simple random, that is names out of a hat. Stratified random, make your groups into population and then draw from each population names out of a hat. And then the last one, put everyone in order and pick every nth person or nth whatever. All right, so let's just get started. It says state which sampling method or methods are being described for questions 1 through 5. Number 1 says, to determine the average number of hours people spend per day watching television, a researcher divided the population into groups according to age. Then he randomly selected 50 people from each age group. Okay, let's go back to our sampling method. Did they just draw names out of a hat? Or did they divide them into populations, the population into groups, and then draw names from each group? Or did they put everyone in order and pick every certain number of people? So let's read this again. A researcher divided the population into groups. There's your clue, divided it into groups, and then randomly selected. Do you remember which one that is? That is stratified. And why it is stratified random sample is because of that researcher dividing the population into groups according to age. All right, let's look at number 2. To study the migratory behavior of loons, biologists randomly tag 64 loons of the Great Lakes. Okay, they randomly tag. Did we divide them into groups? No. Did we put all the loons in order and tag every certain one? No, they just randomly tagged them. So that is a simple random sample. All right, let's look at 3. As melons are unloaded from a truck, Elio picks every 10th melon until he collected 80 melons to estimate the average mass of the melons. So the melons are unloaded, they're coming along, every 10th one they're picked. That is your clue, every 10th melon. Which one would that be? That would be systematic random sample. Okay. So let's review. Simple random, you just draw names out of a hat. Stratified random, divide them into groups and then draw a few from each group. Systematic random, they pick every number of whatever. All right, let's turn to the next page. I want you to try 4 and 5. See if you can figure out if these sampling methods are being used. All right. Let's turn to the next page. Refer to the situation below to answer questions 6 to 8. Mr. Jones plans to open a shop selling organic food in a small town. He would like to survey the town people as to whether they would be interested in organic food. The town has about 6,000 households along 20 streets. Mr. Jones has asked you to help him conduct the survey, but he does not want a simple random sampling method. 6, explain the possible reasons why Mr. Jones does not want a simple random sampling method. Well, why would we divide them into groups? Or why would we pick every 10th household? Why would we take that step rather than just to randomly pick? I would think he wants to make sure that every population is represented, or he wants to make sure that certain populations are represented. So instead of being random, Mr. Jones wants to make sure many populations, or let's not say populations, let's say groups. Many groups are represented. That could be one reason. Describe how you would carry out the survey if you use a systematic random sampling method. Okay, systematic, remember, that is the one where we put them in order and then pick every nth one. So what if he had all the addresses? What would we do with that if we wanted systematic random sampling? Well, he would take a list of all addresses and pick every, well, if he picks every 10th, that will give him a survey of about 600. So every 10th address to sample. Okay. So that is, that's how we would do systematic random. Stratified random. Stratified random is, again, when you divide the population into groups. So how would we divide this into groups? Well, if we just have households, what if we divided them into neighborhoods? So we would divide the households into neighborhoods and then randomly select from each neighborhood. So let's do that. Divide the households into neighborhoods. Divide the household into neighborhoods and randomly select from each neighborhood. Okay, number 9, solve. Soon after a company introduced their new phone into the market, they conduct a survey to determine if the public likes this new product. The person conducting the survey randomly picks 100 people from the company's customer list with the first name beginning with the letter A. Is this sample an appropriate sample? Explain. Okay, let's think about this. They didn't really they did randomly pick, but they applied that the first name needs to begin with the letter A. If we are dividing our population into groups, They need to be groups that we want to make sure they need to be meaningful groups. So if I am looking to survey people who bought my phone, is the letter of their first name meaningful to the company? I don't know that it's meaningful. I think what would be more meaningful is if it's like, okay, I want to randomly select all the people that bought this type of phone and then this type of phone. Maybe dividing them by the type of phone they bought would be more meaningful. Maybe it would be like where they live. That might be meaningful to know, do they have good service there, or are there the salespeople there nice? But the letter of their first name, I don't think that that is meaningful. That is not appropriate. So let's say we're going to say no. And what is the reason why? The reason why is the letter of their first name is not a meaningful qualification. Okay, so no, comma, because the letter of the customer's first name is not an important category. Okay, so that concludes our lesson on random sampling methods. And the purpose of this really is to get you thinking that when you make a survey or when someone surveys you, it's important to think about who is being surveyed and how those people are being picked, because you want your survey to be fair and you want it to be representative. If you have questions about this, I don't expect you to memorize these sampling methods. I just want to get you thinking about it. You guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.